Hi guys, my name is Nicole Porter and this is my persuasion speech. I have my audience of 6 right here. So, would you want to wake up every day vomiting, having diarrhea, and shaking uncontrollably? Would you want to wake up in the morning and not remember what you did the night before? Would you want to lose your children who you love more than anything in the world, or make your mother cry every night because she doesn't know if you're dead or alive? Nobody wants these things for themselves. But when you suffer from substance use disorder, this is what you have to deal with. Addiction is something that affects hundreds of thousands of people. Everyone knows someone with an addiction, whether it be to sugar, to nicotine, or to heroin. These are not just the homeless people living in the streets of Boston. These are your friends, these are your families who are suffering from a disease over which they have very little control. So, I'm the daughter of a recovering addict as well as an employee at a detox center, so I'm around people with substance use disorder on a daily basis. Addiction is an extremely deadly disease and should be treated as such rather than being seen as a choice. In this speech, I will explain how and why addiction should be considered a disease, including the fact that it's genetic, it's in the DSM-5, and treatment facilities are covered by health insurance companies. So, let me begin by explaining the science behind addiction. According to centeronaddiction.org, accessed on October 25th, 2019, like diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, addiction is caused by a combination of behavioral, environmental, and biological factors. Just like other chronic illnesses, families carry the gene for addiction. So, if your parents or your grandparents suffer from addiction, you're carrying the gene as well. According to a book titled Uppers, Downers, All-Arounders, written in 2014, the author explains that some studies place the influence of genetics at 40 to 60%. They explain that studies have also found about 900 genes that scientists believe to influence the development of addiction. As for the brain chemistry, in a letter from the Harvard Medical School, accessed on October 26, 2019, the authors explain that dopamine interacts with the neurotransmitter glutamate, which sustains life by linking activities needed for human survival, such as eating, with pleasure and reward. Addictive substances stimulate that same system and overload it. So in nature, rewards and pleasure only come with time and effort, but addictive drugs like heroin flood the brain with dopamine, so you feel that pleasure immediately and want more. Because of this, your brain makes less dopamine naturally, so when you attempt to stop using, you get really, really depressed because you're feeling no pleasure or reward. In the same letter from Harvard, they also mentioned that today addiction is recognized as a chronic disease that changes both brain structure and function. So just like heart disease changes the heart, addiction hijacks the brain. This makes me think, if something chemically changes in the brain to make it so that you can't stop once you've started, it seems a little bit like an obsession or a mental illness. This leads me to my next point, the fact that substance abuse is listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM-5. The DSM-5 is a book containing detailed descriptions of mental disorders and criteria for diagnosing them. In there is an entire section focused on substance use disorder. So in this section of the DSM-5, which was published in 2013, the American Psychiatric Association explains that one of the key characteristics of these disorders is an underlying change in brain circuits that may persist beyond detoxification. They go on to say the behavioral effects of these brain changes may be exhibited in repeated relapses and intense drug cravings when the individuals are exposed to drug-related stimuli. So as we've already learned, addiction alters the brain's chemistry. This information from the DSM-5 allows us to learn that often, in order to treat the disease of addiction, simply detoxing isn't enough. Your brain isn't ready to be exposed to triggers such as seeing needles or passing by a liquor store, so long-term treatment is extremely beneficial. Luckily, you can go for free in many cases as long as you have insurance. So at the treatment center where I work, which is considered a medical facility, our staff includes mental health professionals like counselors as well as nurses and doctors. This disease requires a medical detox, especially with alcohol addiction. If you stop cold turkey after drinking daily for years, you can easily have seizures and die. So the nurses here administer medications like Librium and phenobarbital to safely detox and ease withdrawal symptoms. Another reason that this proves that addiction is a disease is that detoxes and many 28-day rehab programs are covered by most health insurance companies. The detox where I work accepts insurance companies such as Blue Cross Blue Shield, Tufts, and almost all versions of Mass Health. According to a previously mentioned source, centeronaddiction.org, addiction is defined as a disease by most medical associations, including the American Medical Association. So, if medical associations and health insurance companies can accept the fact that addiction is a disease, it makes me wonder why our society can't. So in conclusion, addiction is a disease that kills thousands of people every day. We all know someone who's affected by it. Today we have looked at the reasons why addiction should be thought of as a disease rather than a choice. These include, it's genetic, it has an entire section in the DSM-5, and treatment centers are medical facilities that are covered by health insurance. Now, if addiction was a choice, why would they choose to alter their brain chemistry? Why would they choose to kill themselves without even being suicidal? Why would they relapse after years of living happily in recovery? If medical journals consider it a disease, and you considered these questions and thought, I'd rather not, maybe we should consider addiction to be something that people cannot control. It's a disease. Thank you. And show the audience. Yeah.